Hello, and welcome to today's tutorial about a Python module named Fabric. Now, Fabric is a tool that lets you execute commands on multiple computers at once with one single command on the command line. So I'll show you their website briefly. So just fabfile.org. This talks about Fabric. One of the drawbacks to Fabric is still requires Python 2.7. It's not a huge deal, but it's certainly not Python 3 compatible yet. So just forewarning, if you have a Python 3 only environment, this won't work in there. Now, there's a bunch of system administration tools like Puppet or SaltStack, which in an enterprise situation are probably better suited for executing these commands in parallel, like updates or installing other configuration stuff. But this module has really helped me just go into an organization and install or modify the host server, or just get general information about a server and run it against multiple servers, which without installing any client on them. If you ever used Puppet or SaltStack, it requires a client-server configuration. Fabric does not. The only thing Fabric requires is that you configure Fabric on your local machine, your development machine, or an instance, a Linux instance with it, and that the Fabric server has SSH access into it. And I'll actually show you how to manage some SSH access, private and public key stuff too. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create an LXC container for my new Fabric server or Fabric host. So this is the machine that's going to control, or at least do, my examples. I have another one here that I already pre-configured to control multiple Raspberry Pis, and I'll show you that after I go through the demo here. So the first thing we're going to do is create this Fabric LXC container. If you don't know what LXC containers are, I recommend watching my other video about them. It's basically just a virtualized machine, and so I'm not going to be messing up this server that it's on, because then I can just delete the whole LXC container and it'll be done if I need to get rid of it. So let's start it. You want to do daemon mode, so it starts in the background. I'm going to do LXC attach. This should look familiar if you watched the other tutorial. Okay, now we're on this this other machine, this virtual machine. The first thing I'm going to do is modify this source file, because I have a local apt-get mirror, which just helps speeds up this video, as well as gets all the packages that I need to install a lot faster than going out to the web and getting them. I probably eventually will do another tutorial on how to create a local Ubuntu mirror, but this step isn't necessary for you to do. Okay, so let's run updates. And let's apt upgrade. So let's get all these packages, and then we're going to install a number of packages we need here. So the first thing we need is Python 2, and the Python pip package manager. I also install a bigger version of Vim, SSH, and Python dev to compile the pip packages. So let's install these. And that's why it's nice to have a local mirror. You get 65 megs in 1 second, which is pretty nice. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is do a number of pip packages installed. Now, if this is your local development machine and you're not using LXC containers, I recommend using the virtual environment stuff that I showed you in the LXD container video. So if you don't know what that is, you should go back and watch that if you're going to just install Fabric without using an LXC container here. You want these always isolated. So here I'm not going to use a virtual machine because I know this machine is isolated because it's an LXC container. So just going to do pip install Fabric. This is a crypto module, and these are two other pip installs that Fabric needs. So let's install those. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to check the version of Fabric. It includes this fab command, and it's just called fab -- version. You can see we're running Fabric 1.10.2. And this is another package it required, and that's the version number 2. It just helps to know that these are both working too. And you could do Python import Fabric, and that worked fine. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is I'm just going to show you how to set up this machine locally, and it's going to SSH into itself just for this demo. But then I'm going to show you how Fabric is able to execute across multiple machines easily. So the first thing you want to do is, you can see here there's not a .sh folder. So you want to do ssh keygen -b, which is bytes, I believe, and you need a minimum of 2048 to be secure, and the type is RSA. Hit enter. Just hit enter here again. I don't use a passphrase, or you'll have to be entering a passphrase every time a remote command is executed here. So I just leave this all the same. So now you'll have this directory called root.ssh. Now you have the public key and the private key. This private key is basically like the lock to your house. So this is the lock and this is the key. You never want to reveal to anyone this private key. This public key you can give to everyone. It doesn't matter who sees it. So the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to do cat, and I'm just going to put this into another file here, authorized keys, and once this is in this file, it's basically going to let me SSH into this machine automatically. So now if I do SSH localhost and hit yes here, you can see that I went right into the server without any password. So I'm going to hit Control D, it's going to log out, and now I can do like uptime here. And as you can see, it ran that command. Pretty straightforward. Okay, so now back to Fabric. So let's go to the root directory, and I'm going to make a directory called Ubuntu updates. And we're going to create this file called the fab file, and this is a Python file. So the first thing you want to do is do from fabric.api import run. And now I'm going to have two commands, and these are going to be the update commands. Update command 2 get -y, so it suppresses that you want to confirm to install updates, and that's pretty straightforward. So the way you call, and I'm going to show you this on the command line in a minute, the way you call the fab command is based on the method name that you want. So let's do def uptime, and we're going to do run uptime. You want to make sure you put this in as a string, and let's say, how about def hostname? And let's do def run updates. And here we can do run command 1, run command 2. So you can see here, and these should actually have a couple more spaces here for PEP 8 compliance stuff. But anyway, you can see that this uptime is going to call uptime. This hostname is going to call hostname. This run update is going to call these two commands. And you can put these two commands in this definition if you want. It's up to you. I recommend you can, once you have multiple commands, you can put them outside here. So we're going to write this file out and go back to the command line. Now we're going to go back to this fab command, and you can do fab -h localhost, and then you want to tell it what method you want it to call. So we're going to call uptime. And you can see it called uptime, disconnected from the local host, and it finished. And just like that, it ran this command essentially remotely. Even though it's the same machine, it is SSHing into the machine. So let's do hostname. And you can see the hostname's Fabric. Now let's run updates. Run updates. And these all match the method names inside the file we just created. So this is going to run pretty quick since we don't have any updates. So that actually just ran updates. So now in order to run this on multiple machines, you just put a comma here and whatever other machine you want. You can put IP addresses here. You can put users at, and I'll show you this in a second. You can do this. All that you need to do is separate by comma here, and it'll run against all these machines. Unfortunately, it's not in parallel, but it's still pretty quick. So let's go over to this machine, and I'll show you my fab file over here. It's pretty similar to the one I just created. So I have an uptime, run updates, hostname, and I actually added this one called dpkg list. So this will list all the packages on the server. Many times I need to know what packages are on each server, or I gotta say, does this machine have Apache, or does it have this package? And I'll show you how to do that. So copy this command over here, and here you go. Now I have fab -h, 192, 105, 110, 111, 115. So these are 4 different Raspberry Pis. And you just hit enter, and this is going to run uptime on all 4 of these machines. And just like that, I got the uptime as well as the load average on these Raspberry Pis. As you can see, they're pretty high. I'm actually running some software on them right now. Okay, let's what else do we have in our fab file? Let's run updates on all of them. So actually I just did this recently for testing, but say in a couple days I need to run updates again. This is all I have to do to update all 4 machines. Then if I had another one that I added, I would just hit comma here and then type the IP. It's that simple. So let's just do run updates on all 4 of them. And you'll see the IP address that it's working on right here. And sometimes the output is a little strange. You'll get repeats like this, and that's okay. That's just because of the way the Fabric std out works. Don't worry about it. It's fine. It's working fine. So right now we're running apt update on this machine, and then we're going to run upgrade. The upgrade has no as you can see, I already upgraded these, so it'll have no packages to configure. But in a couple days, there'll definitely be more packages. So this is an easy way to run updates on 1 machine, 10 machines, thousands of machines, all at once. Okay, we'll let this finish. We're on the 110 server, so we have 2 more to go. So one other thing I will show you too is that I just want to go over the public and private keys one more time, because I know that's a little bit confusing. So if you go to your home directory, so you go cd tilde and you do ls-la, you should have an SSH folder. If you don't, you want to always run ssh keygen -b 2048 -t rsa. And this will generate a private and public key for this user only in root. So if you're under a different user, sometimes you'll have home Ubuntu. So if this one, you can see here, this one doesn't have it. So it's per user per server. So once you have that, you'll get two files. You'll get the public key and the private key. Basically, this is the lock to the server under root, and this is the key. You can always give the public key to anyone and never give the private key to anyone, if that makes sense. So it's like you wouldn't give your keys to your house to a stranger, but you could say my address is this to a stranger, and that's essentially this. The authorized keys is what servers are allowed into this machine. So for example here, we're going to go back to this machine. So it finished. I ran all these updates on all these machines. So let's just go into this Pi real quick. And we're going to look at this authorized key. So this authorized key file is the public key of our Fabric server. So this is all this stuff here is what you want to put into each of these each of the hosts you want to control. If that makes sense. The known hosts is when you do SSH like root at localhost, and you get that prompt where it says, are you sure you want to trust this machine the first time? And you click yes. That gets populated with known hosts. And this file is actually encrypted at this point. So this will all look like gibberish, but this is actually the entry for this its own self right here, if that makes sense. So if you ever get like this host has changed, because say you redid a server and you reassign it the same IP, a lot of times you'll get that where it'll say this host something has changed on this host, and it basically spits out to the command line and maybe really worried if it is the same server that you didn't change the IP address on. But to remove it, it's pretty easy. You just do local host. You do SSA keygen remove localhost here, and as you can see, it deleted. So now once I do, this is the thing I was talking about. It's like this, you'll get this every time it's the first time, you'll get, not every time, but you'll get this the first time you connect to a new server. So if you hit yes, that known host just changed here again. So that's how the private and public key encryption works for Linux. Okay, so one last thing I'll show you is this fab file, and you could have unlimited packages here. So I have a dpkg list here. Say I need to know which version of OpenSSL I have installed on all my Raspberry Pis. So all I have to do is, instead of run updates here, we're going to do pk list. We're just going to do grep OpenSSL. That's what's nice about doing this on the command line too. You can always pass it more commands after it to do further tasks. So tell me which packages are installed on which of these Pis. And as you can see, I'm running OpenSSL, and it's version 1.0.1.e, and as you can see, it's the ARM HF. This is a different chipset of this Raspberry Pi. If I run this over here, this is an Intel machine, and actually I don't have I don't actually have this in this fab file here, but I'll put it here real quick. And let's do fab -h localhost dpkg list grep OpenSSL. And you can see this is an AMD 64-bit machine as opposed to an ARM machine here. So that's how you use Fabric. That's how you use SSH keys and private and public keys and the authorized keys file in order to log into machines remotely without a password. This is a very secure method. Now, if you ever are hacked and you think your keys are compromised, you want to make sure you get rid of all your authorized keys right away, and make sure you regenerate all these. And I recommend if you had a compromised machine or multiple machines, I recommend redoing all the machines immediately. That's the only way to know that that you're secure, is to redo the entire machine. Unfortunately, there's no, hey, I think I got everything off that server and it's good. These keys, if they're compromised, there's no going back. So make sure you keep all the stuff private. The other thing you could do is you want to as you can see here, permissions, these files get read access to these other users, but the private key has only read-write to itself, and that's important. If you ever see read access here for this file, you've been hacked immediately. You should never have your private keys have read access to these other users. So just forewarning on that. It's a good thing to check, is say what is the permissions on this file. We can even, hey, let's write a quick Fabric for that. So check permissions. What is it called? ID_RSA. Check permissions. So just like that, we verified the permissions. Read write, read write, read write. You never want to see R over here for these files. And just like that, I was able to check the permissions on 4 servers. So that's why Fabric is such a great tool. You can have 1 machine, 10 machines, thousands of machines, in order to check or run any command that you want. And this will work on any Linux machine, including Red Hat, CentOS, Ubuntu. The commands are specific to the operating system you're running. So like apt-get is a Debian based Linux, but you're easily can replace this with yum on CentOS or Red Hat. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe.